My stitches were still healing when my husband said, "Come on, it's just Christmas dinner." That was the moment I realized I'd been cooking through pain for years just so they could call it tradition. So this time I gave them exactly what they asked for, every dish perfectly plated. By restaurants. And then I vanished. The remote was just out of reach. Rachel Avery lay curled on the left side of her couch, an oversized fleece blanket tangled around her legs, her fingers stretching toward the coffee table. It wasn't far, just a few inches, but the wrong movement sent a lightning bolt of pain slicing through her abdomen. She froze, gasping. Her hand reflexively flew to her side, pressing over the thick bandage beneath her sweatshirt. Her breath came in shallow bursts as she blinked up at the ceiling, waiting for the pain to pass as she had been doing all week. 10 days post-op, and still every breath, every shift, every step felt like being reminded that her insides had been torn apart and stitched back together. She'd had surgery before. Minor things. A wisdom tooth, a sprained ankle. But this had been different. The tumor had been pressing against her intestine, quiet and undetected until it wasn't. What began as a vague ache turned into fatigue, weight loss, and eventually urgent intervention. Her surgeon used words like invasive blood loss, close call. She remembered the lights above the operating table, fading in and out, the anesthesia, melting her consciousness away, and waking with a pain so dense it didn't even feel like pain, just a void, a fog she was floating in, surrounded by hushed nurses and blinking monitors. Now she was home. Fragile. Healing. And reaching for a damn remote. The television droned in the background, some holiday baking show where contestants in elf hats piped icing onto gingerbread roofs like they had all the time and energy in the world. Rachel, a bi-weekly health editor for a wellness magazine, should have felt at home in this theme. But today, her bones felt heavier than logic, and her brain, once sharp and quick, moved like molasses. A ding broke the stillness. Her phone buzzed face down on the armrest. She used her toes to tug the blanket aside and shifted just enough to slide it into her hand. It was a message from Raymond. "Mom says Christmas is at ours this year. She's bringing the wreaths. You handle the menu." Rachel stared at the text for a long, breathless second. "No, hi, how are you feeling? No, are you up for this? No, let's talk about it. Just. Christmas is at ours." Her thumb hovered over the screen, then pulled away. "Not yet. Not yet." Instead, she rolled to her right carefully this time and pulled open the drawer under the coffee table. It was where she kept the list book. A leather-bound planner, half journal, half recipe log, and half battlefield report. It was her way of surviving the holidays, making lists, checking them twice, and pretending order meant safety. She flipped through pages dated last December. Christmas dinner 2022. Main course: herb roasted turkey with orange zest and sage. Glazed ham with cloves and bourbon maple syrup. Vegan lentil loaf for Kylie, who'd gone plant-based for 3 weeks. Sides: garlic mashed potatoes. Sweet potato casserole extra marshmallows for Corbin. Brussels sprouts with balsamic. Green bean almondine. Mac and cheese. Eva said the boxed one was fine, but made a face. Desserts: apple pie, pecan pie, chocolate lava cake. Gluten-free brownies because Summer's kid had a sensitivity that week. Guests 9. Total dishes 34. Helpers 3. Kylie arranged the napkins. Summer brought wine. Eva hovered. Raymond's contributions. She flipped the page. It was blank. Her pen had once scribbled "Ask Raymond to pick up ice." It had been crossed out and replaced with "Picked up myself." She closed the book, staring at its cover. Raymond wasn't cruel. Not exactly. He was just absent. The kind of man who loved sports scores, salmon grilled on Sundays, and silence. He didn't argue. He didn't insult, but he didn't show up either, not in the ways that mattered. Not for the tough doctor's appointment, not for the late-night fevers. Not when she couldn't stand up in the hospital bathroom and a nurse had to help her. And now Christmas, she read the message again. This time it felt different. Not just presumptuous, not just selfish. It felt violent. She rested the planner on her lap. Outside the window, snow had begun to fall, light soft flakes dotting the windowsill like tiny handkerchiefs. Last year, she joked with Reese, her best friend, that her life could be summed up in lists. Grocery lists, RSVP lists, meal prep lists, medication logs, guest allergies. Her lists had held everything and everyone together for so long. But this year, Rachel wasn't sure she wanted to hold anything anymore. She wasn't sure she could. Not without tearing something open. The phone rang just as she was spooning applesauce into a chipped porcelain bowl, the only thing she could keep down without nausea. The vibration shook the counter slightly, screen lit with a familiar name, Eva Avery. Rachel stared at it. For a long moment she considered letting it go to voicemail. But something about this season, the bitterness tucked beneath red ribbons and holiday wreaths, had her answering out of reflex. Rachel, Eva's voice chirped before she could even say hello. Good you picked up. Now I'm thinking ham this year, instead of turkey. And not that store-bought glazed nonsense. The one you made in 2019, you remember, with cloves and orange peel. Summer loved it. Rachel leaned against the counter, clutching the bowl with both hands to keep from flinging it. I'm not sure I'll be able to cook, Eva, she said quietly. I'm still recovering. Oh, don't be dramatic, dear. You've done it before. The line crackled with dismissiveness, a sound Rachel knew as well as her own breath. You had the flu that one Easter and still made crab puffs. Rachel's voice caught in her throat. Yes. She remembered. She had a 101.8-degree fever. She'd sweated through her clothes 3 times. She'd pulled trays out of the oven while her knees shook and then passed out on the couch as everyone toasted to a perfect meal. Raymond had never even offered to do the dishes. And don't forget those little pastry things, Eva continued breezily. The ones with goat cheese and fig. Kylie specifically asked for them. Kylie's 14, Rachel muttered. And very particular, Eva said sharply, as if that ended the discussion. You know how hard it is to please children these days. Rachel hung up without saying goodbye. Her hands trembled as she set the phone down. She felt the memory rising before she could stop it last Thanksgiving. She'd been running a low-grade fever then too. Reese had offered to cater the dinner. Rachel had said no. Why? Because Eva said canceling would ruin the holiday spirit. So Rachel had roasted 2 turkeys, mashed 15 pounds of potatoes, and laid out matching place cards, only to spend the evening in the upstairs bathroom, throwing up while Raymond watched football with Corbin. She remembered the text he'd sent her while she was hunched over the toilet. Can you keep it down? Game's on. She picked up her phone again, opened the Notes app, and started typing. Not a grocery list this time. Not a schedule. Just a log. Thanksgiving 2021. Fever. Eva said canceling would disappoint Kylie. Cooked anyway. Vomited twice. No one noticed. She stared at the blinking cursor. Then she kept typing. Christmas 2020. Burnt hand on oven door. Raymond laughed, said, be more careful next time. No ice, no help. Easter 2019. Slept 2 hours the night before. Eva said tablecloth was wrinkled. Kylie didn't eat. Summer asked why the chairs weren't matching. She kept going, until her thumb ached. Until her breath grew shallow. Then she opened her email, found her most recent hospital bill, and downloaded the PDF. She began a new folder on her desktop. She called it receipts. Not just financial ones. Emotional receipts. The things she'd been trained not to track. Not to hold on to. Things women were taught to chalk up to doing your part. She opened her journal, an old moleskin buried under self-help books and unread novels, and wrote across the first blank page. What is the price of being the good one? That night, as rain tapped against the windows and Raymond sat at the kitchen table with his AirPods in, watching some sports recap show, Rachel lay awake and asked herself questions she hadn't had the language for before. Why didn't I say no? Was it love? Was it fear? Or had I just gotten used to disappearing? She remembered the first year she'd met his family. Christmas at Eva's, a warm fire crackling in the stone hearth, classical music playing. She'd been offered wine complimented on her blouse. Eva called her graceful. By the 3rd year she was asked to bring dessert. By the 5th she was in the kitchen by noon. By the 7th, she'd memorized everyone's food allergies and still got blamed when Summer's kid broke out in hives. Turns out the child had eaten chocolate in the car. By the 10th, she was Santa Martha Stewart, a waitress, a cleaner, a nurse, everything. But never just Rachel. Now in the quiet hum of her post-surgical house, she felt something new bloom in her chest. Not rage, not even grief. Clarity. She reached for her planner again, flipped to a fresh page and wrote Christmas 2023 no menu. Then, almost without thinking, she clicked open her voice recorder app and began documenting the memory of that phone call with Eva word for word, tone for tone. It wouldn't be the last. This time she wouldn't just survive the holidays, she'd remember them. She'd finally keep score. Morning light filtered weakly through the half-closed blinds, painting slanted stripes across the bathroom mirror. Rachel stood barefoot on the cold tile, one hand resting on the porcelain sink, the other gripping the edge of her sweatshirt as she lifted it slowly. The scar was a thin raised line, angry and pink, still tender to touch. It ran just below her navel like an unspoken sentence, curved slightly to one side as if trying to escape notice. But there was no escaping it. Not anymore. She stared at her reflection. Her face looked pale, hollow, eyes rimmed in fatigue, skin dull and drawn. But something flickered beneath all that. A glint. A sharpness. Something she hadn't seen in years. She didn't look better, she looked awake. And the word came softly at first. Then stronger. Enough, she whispered. Her voice echoed softly against the tile. Not enough as in, I'm strong enough to take it again this year. Number. Enough as in, I will not do this anymore. She let her shirt fall back over the scar and walked out of the bathroom, grabbing her phone from the kitchen counter. She didn't text, she called. Reese picked up on the second ring. Hey Rach, she said, voice thick with sleep and something else, concern. You okay? Rachel sat down slowly on the edge of the couch, exhaling like she was setting a heavy bag down after a long journey. I think, she paused, surprised at the steadiness in her own voice. I think I'm finally ready to stop being the nice girl. There was silence. And then a soft laugh. Well, damn, Reese said. I was beginning to think you'd never say it. Rachel blinked, then let out a short, sharp breath that was almost a laugh. Reese continued. You want to talk about it now or after we order $300 worth of revenge takeout? Rachel grinned. Now, and then we plan. 3 hours later, Reese was at her front door holding a latte in one hand and a clipboard in the other. First, she said, stepping inside like she owned the place. We're going to pick restaurants. Then we're going to wallpaper your dining room with menus. And then... She paused, raising her eyebrows theatrically. We're going to write the most polite middle finger in holiday history. Rachel felt something uncoil in her chest. The familiar tightness of obligation, of guilt, of pretending it loosened. Just a little. Enough to let her breathe. They sat at the kitchen table, and for once Rachel wasn't using it to fold napkins or plan seating arrangements. She opened her laptop and pulled up tabs. Thai food, Indian, Mediterranean, Chinese. Reese suggested adding that new vegan fusion place just to mess with Kylie's delicate palate. They laughed, really laughed, until Rachel clutched her side and had to brace herself against the chair. Ow, she winced, tears in her eyes. Laughing still hurts. Pain is a sign of healing, Reese said with a wink. Besides, this is going to hurt them more. Rachel looked at the menu folder now taking shape on her desktop. Each restaurant represented a holiday she'd survived. Each dish was a symbol not of nourishment, but of rebellion. A declaration that she would no longer set the table for people who never saved her a seat. She stood up slowly, made her way to the study, and pulled out her journal. It had been sitting dormant since her surgery. The last entry was dated 6 months before, the kind of positive affirmations she used to write when she thought gratitude could silence neglect. Today, she picked up her pen with a different kind of clarity. She wrote, This year I'm not serving dinner. I'm serving truth. She paused. Let the ink dry, then added beneath it. Let them feast on their expectations. I'm done feeding them my silence. By evening, Reese had already mapped out a plan. You leave the morning of, she said. I'll come by at dawn and we'll tape the menus up together. And the note. We leave it front and center. Rachel nodded. With one of Eva's precious ornaments. The one that says, for the family's favorite little helper. Reese grimaced. The passive aggression in that thing should be studied in a lab. They laughed again. Rachel's body still ached. The scar pulled when she stood too fast. The bruises from the IVs were still yellowing. But her mind felt sharp, her spine straighter. She wasn't just recovering anymore. She was becoming someone new, or maybe, someone old. The version of herself that had existed before the obligations. The Rachel who used to backpack through Europe with nothing but a notebook and a tote bag. The one who once wrote an entire magazine feature on burnout and still hadn't realized she was living it daily in her own home. She looked at the takeout menus spread across the table like tarot cards. Each one a choice, each one a statement. She could almost see it now, the shocked faces, the awkward silence, the text messages flying back and forth. The moment they'd realized she wasn't coming back through that door with mashed potatoes and an apron. That for once she had chosen herself. Reese leaned back in her chair. You sure about this, Rachel met her gaze steady and unflinching. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Outside, snow began to fall again. Silent. Soft. Like a clean slate. The next call came at 9:03 a.m. on Tuesday. Rachel had just sat down with a cup of lukewarm ginger tea when her phone lit up Summer Avery. She didn't answer it immediately. Instead, she pressed record on her second phone, an old one, long retired but still useful. She tapped the speaker icon and picked up. Rachel Summers' voice sounded tired, already annoyed. Mom says you're being difficult about the menu. She's been trying to reach you all weekend. I needed rest. Rachel replied, voice flat. Well, you can rest after Christmas. Kylie's really hoping for those ham-wrapped asparagus rolls again. And make sure they're gluten-free this time. Last year her stomach was a mess. Rachel stared ahead, blinking slowly. Kylie had 6 cookies and a slice of chocolate cake last year, she said evenly. Summer sighed. Look, just do what Mom wants. You know how she gets when things aren't perfect. Rachel ended the call mid-sentence. She saved the audio file under the name Guilt Tactic, 12/12, then added it to her newly created folder, Receipts. By midweek, her laptop was a digital archive of evidence. Dozens of screenshots, Eva's text, don't forget the cranberry sauce must be homemade. Kylie's snide DM, Mom says you're overreacting. You've had worse. Summer's email, please confirm you're preparing a vegan and keto version of each dish. Kylie's trying something new. She copied and backed them up to the cloud. To a flash drive. To a hidden folder on her work server. Just in case. Her home, once filled with the scent of cinnamon and cloves this time of year, now hummed with quiet preparation of another kind. Strategic. Surgical. Raymond, of course, noticed nothing. He came home late, scarfed down whatever takeout Rachel ordered, and complained vaguely about gas prices. On Wednesday night, he walked in while she was printing out takeout menus. What's all this? He asked, not bothering to look up from his phone. Research, Rachel said, tapping a stack of printouts from the Indian place down the street. For a story on holiday stress. He grunted and wandered off to the living room. He hadn't asked once how she was feeling. Thursday morning, Rachel's phone rang again. This time it was Dr. Harwood. Rachel, I've been reviewing your post-op chart, the woman said gently. Your white cell count is slightly elevated. Nothing alarming yet, but your healing is lagging. Rachel's throat tightened. What does that mean? It means your body is tired, the doctor replied. You need to rest, no heavy lifting, no prolonged standing. And no stress, if possible. Rachel pressed her palm over her bandaged fingers, curling slightly. I understand, she said softly. Rachel, the doctor added before hanging up, her tone shifting. This is the time to protect your health. I can send a formal note if needed. Rachel looked toward the kitchen where the refrigerator bore a list titled Holiday Prep, Master Timeline. Written by Eva. Pinned by Raymond. She nodded slowly. Yes, please do. That night, she sat down at her laptop, opened a new browser tab, and typed Remote Lake Cabin with Chef plus post-surgical recovery amenities. The listings were fewer than she hoped, but after an hour of comparing reviews and amenities, she found it, Lakeside Cabin 3. Private. Secluded, fireplace, medical staff on call, and most importantly, no cell service, unless requested. She stared at the reservation form, then reached for Raymond's wallet on the counter. He always left it there like he trusted the house to clean itself. She opened it, took out his second credit card, the one he'd used for golf weekends and last-minute gifts when he forgot birthdays. She booked the cabin from the 24th of December through the 2nd of January. And then she smiled. By Friday, her plan had taken shape like a masterfully executed recipe. Measured. Precise. She arranged takeout orders from 4 restaurants: Chinese dumplings, honey walnut, shrimp, sesame chicken, Thai spicy noodles, green curry, mango sticky rice, Indian butter chicken vegetable biryani naan, vegan Mediterranean roasted chickpea stew tabbouleh lentil stuffed peppers. Each order was personalized to someone's very specific tastes. She even made sure Kylie's was gluten-free just for the irony. All prepaid using Raymond's credit card. Delivery time Christmas Day. 1:30 p.m. sharp. So it would all arrive just before the expected 2 p.m. dinner Eva had declared. She emailed each restaurant with a thank you note confirming delivery and requesting paper menus extra copies. Her printer whirred steadily through the evening, stacking them in careful piles. 1 pile for each wall of the dining room. She even included a handwritten message, deliberate, elegant, cursive, "Welcome, dinner is served. Everything prepaid. Any complaints may be forwarded to the surgeon." Late that night, Rachel took a walk through the house. She paused in each room, taking mental snapshots. The bookshelf Eva always rearranged without asking the table. Kylie stained with nail polish 2 years ago, the armchair where Raymond once fell asleep while she had a 103-degree fever and couldn't get out of bed. She walked to the front door and looked up at the small black circle just above the porch light, the Ring camera Raymond had installed last summer to prevent package theft. She opened the app. Still working, still recording, still uploading everything to the cloud. She adjusted the angle slightly, just enough to catch the dining room if the front door remained open. Let them talk. Let them perform. Let the whole thing be documented. Because this year Rachel wasn't the one under scrutiny. This year she was the one keeping score. Christmas Eve arrived with quiet snow and the low hum of anticipation, the kind that wrapped around your ribs like a held breath. The house was still save for the faint clicking of the radiator and the occasional sigh of wind against the window panes. Rachel sat in her armchair, a blanket across her lap, watching the last menu pages glide out of the printer. Each one felt like a page from her own story. One no one had ever asked to read, but this time they'd be forced to. At 11:05 p.m., the doorbell rang. Reese stood on the porch in a parka lined with faux fur, a thermos in one hand and a roll of tape in the other. "Merry Vengeance Eve," she said, grinning. Ready to decorate, Rachel stepped back, letting her in. "I left the mistletoe off this year." Reese looked around, taking in the blank walls, the untouched dining table, the absence of the usual holiday garlands and candles. "Perfect," she said, nodding. A blank canvas. They got to work. For the next 2 hours, the two women moved silently, carefully, with the kind of rhythm that only came from years of friendship and years of being underestimated. Reese laid out the first batch of menus on the dining room table while Rachel gathered thumbtacks, tape, and scissors. Together, they started affixing each menu, Thai, Chinese, Indian, Mediterranean, onto the cream-colored walls, lining them up with a precision that made them look like wallpaper. "You know what I love most about this," Reese said, adjusting the Chinese takeout section near the window. "What? It's not just takeout," she replied. "It's documentation. Karma doesn't just knock anymore. It gets delivered hot and ready." Rachel smiled, biting back a laugh. "Should we call it the 12 dishes of justice?" They both chuckled, but underneath the humor was a current of something deeper, something like peace. Rachel hadn't felt it in years. By 1:00 a.m. the room was complete. The dining room had become a gallery of quiet rebellion. Menus fluttered slightly under the heating vent like flags in a breeze. The once formal table, so often laden with roasts and starches and expectations, was now bare except for a single folded note at the center. Reese reached into a small gift bag and pulled out an ornament, round, gold-plated, the words engraved in a delicate looping script. "For the family's favorite cook, love, Mom." Rachel took it from her gently, fingertips brushing over the inscription. "She gave this to me our first Christmas together," she murmured. "Said it was a joke." "She lied," Reese said flatly. "It was a prophecy." Rachel placed the ornament on the table, setting it gently over the folded card. She'd written the note earlier that afternoon, her handwriting elegant and steady. "To my beloved family. Dinner is served. All meals prepaid, customized to your preferences. I will not be joining this year. I'm under doctor's orders to rest. Any concerns may be directed to my surgeon. Wishing you a delicious holiday. Rachel." Formerly the family's unpaid chef, cleaner, and emotional shock absorber. Reese let out a low whistle. "Elegant. Scathing. 5 stars." Rachel took one last look around the room. The soft light of the chandelier reflected off the menu pages, casting shadows in strange, beautiful patterns across the walls. "This is the best it's ever looked," she said. "No gravy boat required," Reese added. Before they left, Rachel walked slowly around the room, taking pictures with her phone, wide shots of the walls, close-ups of the menus, the note, the ornament. Not for evidence. Not even for the Ring camera. But for herself. She wanted to remember this moment. The stillness, the quiet triumph. The taste of finally saying no without having to raise her voice. "I used to think freedom would feel big," she whispered. "Like a speech. Or a door slamming." And Reese asked. Rachel looked down at her phone screen, the final image coming into focus. "It feels like clean walls," she said. "And no damn casserole in the oven." They locked the door behind them. The driveway glowed under the porch light, fresh snow covering every sound but the soft crunch of their boots. Reese opened the passenger door and helped Rachel into the car, adjusting the blanket over her lap like a nurse who cared too much. As they pulled away, Rachel glanced back at the house. The windows were dark now, but inside waited everything her family had demanded and nothing they had expected. She pressed a hand gently over her healing scar. "Are you ready?" Reese asked, eyes on the road. Rachel didn't hesitate. More than ever. The Ring camera blinked to life at exactly 10:59 a.m. Through the live feed on her phone, Rachel watched as Eva's SUV pulled into the driveway, first the wheels crunching softly over fresh snow. The car rocked slightly as the doors opened. Out came Eva in her signature emerald coat with faux fur trim, balancing a tray of deviled eggs in one hand and a bundle of pine garlands in the other. Next came Summer, tugging a suitcase full of holiday china and gesturing dramatically at Kylie, who trailed behind, buried in her phone, thumbs flying across the screen. Corbin showed up last, stepping out of a black pickup truck with a beer tucked in the crook of his arm like it was a baby. Rachel sat back on the soft leather seat of Reese's SUV, parked discreetly around the corner, steaming travel mug in hand. Reese glanced over. "They're right on time." "Eva does love punctuality," Rachel replied, her voice calm. On screen, Eva tried the doorknob. Locked. She frowned, then rang the bell. Raymond arrived moments later, keys jingling, fumbling with the lock. He barely said hello to anyone, his face distracted, phone in hand. Then the door opened and the show began. The first reaction was from Kylie. As she stepped into the dining room, her phone slid from her fingers and hit the hardwood floor with a soft clack. Her mouth dropped open like a cartoon character's. "Oh my God," she breathed. "Is this a restaurant?" Eva, right behind her, stopped mid-step. "What in the world?" she muttered, eyes scanning the walls, plastered with laminated takeout menus, all neatly arranged in rows like an exhibit at a modern art museum. Summer's expression was a study in restraint. She blinked once, then twice, then slowly looked around as though trying to decode an abstract painting. "What is this?" she whispered. Raymond's brows furrowed. "Where's the food?" Corbin, less subtle, burst into a half-laugh, half-scoff. "Yo, is this like a prank?" Then Eva spotted the note on the table. She picked it up, squinted at the handwriting, then read aloud, "Dinner is served. All meals prepaid, customized to your preferences. I will not be joining this year. I'm under doctor's orders to rest. Any concerns may be directed to my surgeon." Eva went pale. Summer sat down slowly in the nearest chair as if her knees had given out. Raymond stood motionless, staring at the note like it was a foreign language. Then Rachel pressed send. A group text lit up every phone in that room simultaneously. Everything is paid. Every debt. Every meal. Every pain. Every ignored word. Enjoy the feast. Rachel. The room erupted into chaos. She can't be serious. Summer snapped, her voice climbing into a whine. What kind of person does this? Eva clutched the ornament in her hand, the one that still sat next to Rachel's note, her knuckles whitening. This is beyond disrespectful, she hissed. This is unhinged. She always was dramatic. Corbin offered, flopping into a chair and opening the takeout menu closest to him. But hey, Thai food. I'm in. Don't touch anything. Eva barked, smacking his hand away. Meanwhile, Kylie stood frozen, scrolling through her phone again. She posted it, she murmured. What? Summer turned sharply. The note. The setup. It's on Reddit. And Instagram. It's already got like thousands of likes. Raymond finally moved, pulling out his phone. She recorded this. Kylie nodded. There's a full write-up. People are calling it the Christmas takeout revolution. Eva's face went red, then white, then something in between. She humiliated us. Publicly. Rachel watched all of this unfold from her screen with the calm of someone who had already let go. Reese passed her a cookie and leaned back. You think they'll get it? Rachel shook her head, smiling faintly. Number. But they'll feel it. Back inside the house, Summer had begun pacing, cradling her phone like it might explode. I texted her 5 times. No response. She's not coming, Kylie said flatly, still reading. She's at a retreat, with chefs. Actual ones. She used Raymond's credit card, Eva gasped, picking up a receipt that had been tucked under one of the menus. She probably had to, Corbin muttered. We don't pay her. Raymond sat down slowly at the end of the table, face slack. Is this my fault? He asked, no one in particular. No one answered. Eva finally dropped into the chair across from him and sighed loudly, dramatic as ever. I suppose we'll just have to eat this betrayal. Summer narrowed her eyes. The butter chicken smells good. Outside, Rachel took one last look at the live feed before closing the app. The Ring camera caught it all, the confusion, the arguments, the pettiness, and somewhere beneath it all the dawning realization that Rachel Avery had finally stopped playing the role they'd written for her. I feel lighter, she said. Reese smiled. That's what happens when you drop 34 holiday dishes worth of emotional baggage. They both laughed, then turned the car toward the snowy highway. Behind them, the house remained filled with people who'd only now begun to notice the absence of the woman who once held it together. The snow outside the cabin fell in soft curtains, making the world beyond the window blur into silence. Rachel sat cross-legged on the bed, flannel pajamas tucked into thick wool socks, laptop balanced on a tray across her knees. A mug of herbal tea steamed beside her, untouched. She clicked send. It wasn't one email. It was 4. Each carefully composed. Each addressed individually, though their content shared the same raw truth. She didn't add pleasantries. No hope you're well or Merry Christmas. Just facts. Subject line: in case you forgot what this cost me. Body attached, you'll find copies of my post-operative hospital bill, $38, $602 before insurance. A statement from Dr. Harwood regarding my physical restrictions dated 2 weeks ago. A photo of my surgical scar taken 3 days ago, still inflamed but healing. And a transcript of Eva's call on the 15th of December, timestamped, where she says, what surgery a woman's job is to host. At the bottom, Rachel added, you mistook my silence for agreement. Consider this the overdue reply. Rachel. She attached the files, clicked send all, and leaned back, letting the laptop slide off her legs onto the blanket beside her. The emails whooshed away into the cold Christmas morning like arrows loosed from a long-held bow. Reese walked in moments later, a plate of pancakes in one hand and her phone in the other. You want the bad news or the hilarious news? Rachel raised an eyebrow. Always hilarious first. Reese set the plate down, grinning. Reddit threads at 10,000 upvotes. You're officially a movement. Rachel blinked. Seriously, seriously. Reese turned the phone around to show her. The title of the thread was already legendary: Ada for leaving my entitled family with prepaid takeout menus on Christmas after surgery. The top comment, highlighted in gold, read, OP didn't just serve dinner. She served generations of unspoken resentment on a platter. Queen behavior. Rachel laughed, really laughed, until she had to clutch her stomach again. It hurts, she wheezed. But it's worth it. Reese scrolled. They're calling it the takeout revolution. Someone's making t-shirts. Please tell me it has chopsticks crossed like swords. Reese squinted. Yep, and the tagline is, no prep, no guilt, no gravy. They laughed again. Then the first reply came in. From Summer, subject, are you insane? How dare you send that to mom? She's crying. Kylie is confused. Raymond is humiliated. Why would you do this to us? To family, Rachel didn't reply. Another buzz, another email. From Eva, subject, you owe me an apology. That was private. That phone call was between us. Do you know how this makes me look? Rachel smiled faintly. Another ping. From Corbin, subject, LMAO, I mean. Fair play, Rach. Dinner was bomb. The biryani hit different. Mom's still mad though. She says you weaponized samosas. Reese nearly spit out her coffee. Okay, I like Corbin now. Rachel shrugged. He's been a chaos goblin since college. At least he owns it. Then came the message Rachel didn't expect. From Raymond, subject, can we talk? I read everything. I didn't know the surgery was that serious. I didn't realize how much I'd been ignoring. I guess I got used to you doing everything. Maybe I thought that's just who you were. Rachel stared at the screen for a long moment. The cursor blinked in the reply box, waiting. She didn't type. Instead, she opened the folder labeled Holiday Evidence and dragged it all. Screenshots, receipts, voicemails, calendars into a new drive titled Exit Archive. She then forwarded that link to her divorce lawyer. Reese leaned against the doorframe, sipping her tea. You okay? Rachel nodded. It feels strange. What does not fighting anymore? She said. Not justifying, not performing, just letting the truth speak. Outside, snow continued to fall. Reese came over and sat beside her, glancing at the screen. You served them reality. Most people don't even know how to chew that. Rachel smiled faintly. I don't care if they digest it, she said. I just wanted to stop spoon-feeding them my soul. Later that afternoon, Rachel posted one comment under her Reddit thread. Hi, OP here. For those wondering, I'm resting, healing, breathing real air, and eating food I didn't have to cook for people who actually care if I'm in pain. That's the whole story. *Ide. Within minutes, the reply came. You didn't just light a match. You gave us all permission to stop setting ourselves on fire to keep others warm. Rachel closed her laptop and let out a long, quiet breath. This was peace. This was recovery. This was the moment after the storm when everything had broken but something stronger was finally taking root. And the best part, dinner would arrive in 10 minutes. No dishes. No guilt. No apologies. Just nourishment. The cabin sat like a secret at the edge of the world, tucked into a clearing surrounded by pines powdered with fresh snow. Its wooden beams gleamed golden in the afternoon light, smoke curling gently from the stone chimney. Inside, the fire crackled softly in the hearth, casting long amber shadows over the rugs and thick knit blankets. Rachel stood at the window, her palm pressed lightly against the cool glass. Beyond it stretched nothing but stillness. No voices, no expectations, no clinking dishes or urgent calls from the living room. Just snow, and silence. And space. Behind her, a soft knock on the doorframe. Dinner's almost ready, said Mara, the retreat's in-house chef. A warm, stocky woman with smile lines as deep as valleys and a voice that always felt like honey after a bad day. Rachel turned and smiled. Thank you, Mara nodded and left. The phone rang for the third time that day. Rachel let it ring once, twice, then against her better judgment picked up. Raymond. She didn't say hello, he jumped in anyway. You can't do this, Rachel. She closed her eyes, counted to 3. You can't just disappear, he continued. It's Christmas. We're family. She let the silence stretch until it began to itch. Then she spoke. "You had years," she said quietly, "to treat me like family." The line went still. "But you chose staff instead." "Rachel, come on," she cut him off. "No," she said with a kind of clarity that vibrated through her chest. "I cooked through migraines, through fevers. I cleaned up after Kylie's spills while you watched the Seahawks. I stayed up until 2 a.m. ironing your mother's damn linen napkins so she wouldn't call me lazy again." "That's not fair." "It's accurate," she said, firmer now. He sighed. "So what? You're just done." Rachel looked out the window again. Snow had begun falling soft and slow. "I'm healing," she said, voice calm. "From surgery, from expectations. From you, from all of you." There was a pause on the line then, a shift in Raymond's voice. Quieter, smaller. "I didn't know you felt that way." She didn't respond, because he did know. He just never listened. "You could have said something," he added. Rachel almost laughed. "Raymond," she said gently, "I did say something. 1,000 ways." Then, after a pause, "I just stopped shouting when no one heard." He didn't reply. She imagined him standing in the kitchen surrounded by half-eaten takeout, the walls still papered with menus he hadn't removed. Maybe Eva pacing. Maybe Summer yelling about reputations and public embarrassment. Maybe Kylie rolling her eyes and filming it all for TikTok. Rachel imagined him finally seeing that empty house not as an insult but as a mirror. He was the one left behind. "I'll be gone until New Year's," she said simply. "And after that," Rachel said, "I'll be filing for divorce." Silence. She let him sit in it. For once she didn't rush to soften the blow. "Goodbye, Ray." She hung up. And this time her hand didn't tremble. Dinner was served in a candlelit dining room with only 4 tables. 2 were empty. At the third sat an elderly couple speaking softly over roast duck and wine. Rachel took her seat at the 4th, where Mara placed a steaming plate of winter squash risotto with Parmesan crisp and roasted root vegetables. "Let me know if you want dessert later," she said with a wink. "There's gingerbread with maple cream." Rachel nodded, tears threatening the corners of her eyes. Not because she was sad, but because for the first time in years she was being fed. Not used, not needed, just cared for. Reese texted around 8 p.m. "Guess what thread's at 22K upvotes?" One of the comments got gilded twice. "They're calling you Saint Rachel of the Takeout Gospel." Rachel laughed into her pillow. Then she typed back, "Still the best Christmas I've ever had." She paused, then added, "Tomorrow I'm starting a new list. Not for menus, but for things that make me feel human again." She put the phone down, climbed into bed, and pulled the blanket over her body, careful not to tug too hard at her healing incision. And just before she drifted off, she whispered into the quiet room, "I am not coming back. Not to being small. Not to being invisible. Not to that version of me." And the fire crackled softly in agreement. 1 week later, Rachel stepped out of the car and into the driveway of the house she had once called home. It looked the same. Red brick frosted windows, the dying remnants of Eva's Christmas garlands drooping like tired apologies. But something was different. She was different. She no longer approached this house with a knot in her stomach. She approached with a lawyer and a file folder. Andy Harper, her attorney, adjusted his scarf as he followed her up the walk. "You ready?" Rachel exhaled. "I've never been readier." Raymond was waiting in the living room. He looked smaller somehow, shoulders, hunched hair, uncombed, a cup of cold coffee trembling in his hand. "Rachel," he started, his voice cracking. "Let's talk." Andy stepped forward smoothly. "Let's document." Raymond blinked. Rachel placed a folder on the coffee table with quiet precision. Inside, signed divorce papers. Printed screenshots of texts. Medical documents. Transcriptions of voicemails. A list titled "Christmases I Hosted While Sick." She sat down across from him, calm and collected. "This isn't personal," she said softly. "It's legal." The front door slammed open. Eva stormed in like a winter gust, her fur-lined coat billowing behind her like a villain in a made-for-television movie. "You," she shouted, jabbing a finger at Rachel. "How dare you humiliate this family? Andy held up his phone. "You're being recorded, Mrs. Weatherby. Every word is evidence." Eva hesitated, then scoffed undeterred. "I gave you everything," she continued. "A home, a place in our traditions, a seat at the table." Rachel didn't flinch. "You gave me chores, criticism, and casserole duty," she replied evenly. "But never a seat. I was always standing." Raymond cleared his throat weakly. Over one dinner, Rachel, her gaze turned to him. Steady. Unwavering. "No, Raymond," she said, her voice a low chord of finality. "Over one lifetime of disrespect." Eva made a strangled sound. "You can't just walk away from family," she spat. Rachel stood. "I'm not walking," she said, voice rising just slightly like a curtain before a final act. "I ran. And now I'm documenting the sprint." Andy nodded. "We'll proceed with property division next. My client is requesting the house." Raymond's eyes widened. "You can't take the house." "Actually," Rachel said, sliding the final document across the table, "I bought out your share." He looked at it, stared, blinked. "You used the Christmas refund checks." She smiled. "And some of the therapy stipend from your insurance." Turns out healing isn't just physical. Eva took a step forward. "This is insane. You've destroyed everything." Rachel tilted her head. "Number. I just stopped pretending it wasn't already broken." She turned to Andy. "I think we're done here." He nodded, beginning to pack the documents. Raymond said nothing, just stared at the same spot on the floor as if searching for the version of himself that might have saved this before it fractured. Eva's mouth opened to speak again, but the Ring camera above the entryway blinked red. She hesitated. "Go ahead," Rachel said gently. "Tell me what I owe you." Eva's jaw snapped shut. As Rachel reached the door, Raymond called her name. She paused. His voice was fragile. "Is there anything left?" She turned halfway, not fully. "There's the house," she said. "But I don't think you'll like how quiet it is without me." Then she opened the door and stepped outside, the winter air biting her cheeks but clearing her lungs. She didn't look back. Later that evening, Reese met her at a downtown cafe with a bottle of celebratory wine hidden in a reusable grocery tote. "You good?" she asked. Rachel smiled. "I'm signed, documented, and done." Reese raised her cup in a toast. "To freedom," Rachel shook her head. "To clarity," she said. "To remembering I don't need to earn my place at a table that was never set for me." Outside, the city glowed in soft gold and silver lights. Somewhere across town, Eva was probably yelling at Raymond about property law. Summer was likely posting cryptic quotes on Facebook. And Rachel hoped she was journaling her way out of the family script entirely. But none of that was Rachel's story anymore. She had signed her ending and was already writing her new beginning. The cafe was quiet, tucked in the corner of an old brick building near downtown Seattle, its windows slightly fogged from the warmth inside. Outside, the snow fell in hushed spirals, coating the streets like powdered sugar. Rachel sat at the table by the window, no longer hiding in corners, no longer checking her phone every few seconds, no longer waiting to be needed. She was early, deliberately. She liked watching people enter. This time it was Eva and Raymond who stepped through the door, hesitating in the threshold like guests unsure if they were welcome. They spotted her, moved stiffly toward the table. Raymond looked like he hadn't slept in days. Eva wore her best winter coat, but her usual grandiosity seemed wrinkled. Rachel didn't stand. She didn't need to. Instead, she slid a plain white envelope across the table. Inside, a cashier's check. Half the proceeds from the house sale. "Legally notarized," she said, calmly. "As promised." Raymond opened it, blinked. Eva just stared. Silence hung like breath on a window pane. Then Eva spoke. "Is this really it? After all these years, after all those holidays? What about family?" Rachel looked at her. Not coldly, not cruelly, just clearly. "I chose myself," she said softly. "As family. First." Eva's mouth tightened. She looked ready to argue. Then her gaze dropped to her gloves resting on the table like two empty hands. She didn't speak again. Raymond slid the check back toward her. "We didn't mean for it to get this bad." Rachel shook her head. "You didn't mean for it to get this honest." He looked like he wanted to say more, but Rachel stood before he could. I wish you healing, she said. Then added with a nod to Eva. Both of you. She left the cafe coat unzipped, scarf loose around her neck like she no longer needed armor. Outside, the air was crisp and clear. Reese was waiting across the street, leaning against her car with a grin. Well, she asked, holding out a coffee. Rachel took it, sipped, then smiled. Peaceful. Really? Rachel nodded. They got the check. I got my breath back. Reese beamed. Oh, and guess what? She pulled out her phone and tapped the screen. Your Reddit post just passed 100,000 upvotes. Rachel raised her eyebrows. They're calling you the patron saint of burned-out daughters-in-law. Rachel laughed. Not the small polite laugh she used to give at family dinners. A full open one that reached her eyes and wrinkled her nose. Reese grinned wider. You're a movement now. Rachel looked out at the snowy street. Maybe. Or maybe I just reminded a few thousand women that silence isn't noble. They walked slowly, drinks in hand, snow crunching beneath their boots. Do you regret anything? Reese asked. Rachel thought for a moment. Only not doing it sooner, she said. Only not realizing that serving dinner isn't love when it comes with a side of resentment. They reached the corner. Reese paused, tugging Rachel into a quick hug. You served something bigger this year, she whispered. Rachel pulled away, eyes gleaming. This Christmas, she said, almost to herself, I didn't serve dinner. I served myself peace. She kept walking after that. Alone. But not lonely. With every step her body felt lighter. Not because the scar had vanished, it still pulled slightly with movement, but because the weight of obligation had finally lifted. No more invisible checklists. No more invisible self. As she crossed the street, a group of kids threw snowballs at each other, laughter ringing through the air. She smiled at them, really smiled, not to please or perform, but because it bubbled up from somewhere real. A notification pinged on her phone, but she didn't check it. Not now. Now belonged to the cold, clean air. To this walk. To this woman who had once been consumed by lists and now only needed one. Peace, breath, self. The snow swirled gently around her like applause. And in the distance, perhaps in another house, another kitchen, another woman read the thread and whispered, if she can walk away, maybe I can stand up. And the story continued. Not just Rachel's, ours.